Welcome to episode 15 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show. My name is Jeremy Poock and I lead Senior Attorney Match. In today's Ask Show, we'll have two segments. Segment one will be our Q&A segment, and we'll address three questions today. And our second segment will be Poock's Post. And just as a preview for today's Poock's Post, we'll address why it is that senior attorneys have not recently reordered their business cards. So let's jump right into it with our Q&A. All right, so our first question today is, what if my time horizon to sell is less than 1 year? Okay, so for those senior attorneys who are thinking of selling their law practice within the next year, the first piece of advice that we have is to update and organize certain parts of your practice. So similar to selling your home, let's say that you've lived in for 20, 30 plus years, your law firm, there's items to organize and update before we go to market to sell the practice. And those fundamental items to update, first and foremost, is your client list and referral source list. That is the most valuable asset of a senior attorney's practice, is the client list and referral source list. Why? Because the energy source for all law firms is clients, and any purchasing firm is going to want to know, what is your client list? How many clients do you have? Where are they? What are their phone numbers? What are their addresses? What are their email addresses? What are their cell phone numbers? And similarly for your referral source list. So to update the client list is really imperative as you're thinking of selling your law firm. Second is to update your website. Any potential purchaser, they're going to go straight to your website. They're going to read your bio. They're going to read the bios of other attorneys at your firm. So very important to update the content on the website. Also, please update your picture, right? I mean, it's great if you have a picture there that was yourself from 15, 20 years ago. If you are not that same person today and you haven't updated your picture in the last even 5 years, worthwhile, have a professional photographer, not your paralegal, not your spouse, not your grandchild, a professional photographer to take pictures of senior attorneys, other attorneys at the firm, staff as well. Beyond the website, your LinkedIn profile. In addition to going straight to your website, any purchaser is going to look at the LinkedIn profile for all of the attorneys in the law firm. So there, it's also important to update the biographical information, the photos, and to try to increase the number of connections. Connections on LinkedIn is indicative of networking. Okay, how many people do you know? How many people are you networked with? Ideally, to try to get to 500 plus connections, if possible, for the LinkedIn profiles for all the attorneys at the firm. And then one other item that we mentioned is malpractice insurance. To look at your malpractice insurance, the premiums, there's often a tail that is purchased as part of selling a law firm. So it's important to look at how much would that tail policy cost, and is it sufficient depending upon the level of risk that you have and the level of insurance premium that you want for the tail when you eventually sell the practice or merge your practice, typically with a growing law firm. In addition, as you're doing these updates, important to just look at any contract that is not terminable at will, that is a contract for 30 plus days, just so there's no surprises. Of course, you know what the term is on your office lease, but what's the term on your legal research? What about your copy machine, your telephone contract, even things like your postage meter, just so there aren't any surprises when you're going through the sale process. So those are the items to update. Now, in terms of you're thinking of selling your practice within the next year, how long does it take to actually sell a law firm? And what we find in our experience is that from a time standpoint, it's typically 3 to 9 months, can be longer, and it involves 6 meetings. We find that it takes 6 meetings to sell a law firm, where those 6 meetings consist of a meet and greet with a firm that you're considering to sell to, meet the partners at that firm, and meet them in a social context, typically to find out, can we work with these people? Then there's a due diligence period. Then we start negotiating terms, develop a letter of intent. Then there's the signing of the letter of intent, negotiate an agreement, and finally sign the agreement. What we find often is that the first 3 of those 6 meetings, the meet and greet, due diligence, negotiate, a letter of intent, those are the ones that can often take the most time, and deals either happen or don't happen during those first 3 meetings. And if a deal winds up not happening after, let's say, the due diligence period, then it's a matter of starting that up with another firm. So in terms of the time frame, if you're thinking of selling your law firm within the next year, understanding that those 6 meetings needed to sell a law firm absolutely takes anywhere from 3 to 9+ months. Another important factor to consider when considering selling your law firm within, let's say, a 1 year horizon, are your key employee lawyers and key employees generally. But let's just focus on your key employee lawyers, and let's also assume that your key employee lawyers are not going to purchase your practice. That is, we're finding in the marketplace that most senior attorney-led firms, they're selling their firms, merging their firms with growing law firms that absolutely want and need your key employee lawyers. Your key employee lawyers, what is the most important aspect to them when it comes to, let's say, the sale process or succession planning process with regard to their senior attorney bosses? They want to have what we call RPS, a reliable, predictable, and safe job. And when their RPS is low, then they will consider searching for another job. So, as a senior attorney and senior attorney led firm is considering to sell a law firm within, let's say, a 1 year period, we have to be really strategic about when to inform the key employee lawyers and recognize that their internal job security meter, we want to make sure that their RPS, their reliable, predictable, and safe job, is assured. And what we absolutely continue to see in the marketplace is that growing firms, those buyers of senior attorney led firms, they want and need your key employee lawyers because they're the ones who will continue to do the work. They don't necessarily, that is, a buyer doesn't necessarily have the lawyer capacity to do the work of that book of business that senior attorney led firms have developed. So the buying firm is definitely going to maintain that reliable, predictable, and safe job that your key employee lawyers need. And it's very important during that 1 year period or longer that you're considering to sell your law firm to assure those key employee lawyers that their job continuity is absolutely part of the process. So now let's just look. When senior attorneys join growing law firms with their key employee lawyers, that job security meter on behalf of the key employee lawyers, it's fully in the green. That is, they have restored that and maintained that reliable, predictable, and safe job. And it's really a matter of the senior attorney continuing to assure those key employee lawyers, when they let them know about the fact that you're considering to sell the law firm, that any potential growing law firm is going to want and need them as well. And that is what we continue to see in the marketplace. For those lawyers that are considering to sell their practices within that next year. So if you're considering selling your law firm within the next year, but you're pretty much, let's just say, on the fence of whether and when to sell a law firm, we ask our clients to look at, well, what's happening with the revenues of your practice. If the revenues of a senior attorney led firm, if those revenues are going down, and then they're not going to go down initially, in a steep way per se, but what we're seeing in the marketplace, particularly post 2020, is that senior attorney led firms are typically not generating as much revenue as they did in yesteryear, because growing firms, younger firms that are adopting multi-channel digital marketing to attract new clients, they're attracting more new clients than senior attorneys did in the yesteryear parts of their practice. Hence, the revenues are going down. And our advice to those senior attorneys that are on the fence of, okay, is now the year for me to sell my law practice or not? If you're seeing the revenues of your practice gradually go down year after year, that, in our opinion, is a sign that you're not generating as much revenues because clients, new clients that is, are not finding you as well as they did in the word of mouth era, because we're now in the 3.0 digital era where clients are going straight to Google. And we're saying that Uncle Google is America's greatest referral source for lawyers. And if you're not being found on Google, then you're not going to generate as many new clients as you did in yesteryear and as much new revenues. And that could lead to a random Tuesday event in the context of key employee lawyers of yours, that what they need is a safe, predictable, and reliable job. And if they don't feel that their job is safe, predictable, and reliable, they could leave your practice, and that could actually cause revenues to go down significantly. So when lawyers are considering to sell their practice within, let's say, a 1 year horizon, we suggest in particular to know that it takes 6 meetings for lawyers to sell their law practices. That is, when senior attorneys are considering a 1 year horizon for selling their law firms, we suggest that you have in mind that the process takes at least 3 to 9+ months, and it involves 6 meetings to sell the practice, and that all happens after you've prepared your practice to go to market. So for our next question today, is how important is firm culture when selling or buying a law firm? So what we find is that firm culture is king and queen when it comes to law firm purchases and sales. The main reason why a purchaser wants to purchase a law firm is because they want to grow. They want to grow their client base. A main reason and a main value that senior attorneys have and that senior attorney-led firms have is the book of business. So it's wonderful, right? You've got senior attorney has the book of business, and the growing law firm has a need for those clients. Well, the factor in terms of firm culture is who does the work. And what we find with law firm sales is that because we're not just selling widgets, okay, we're transferring a book of business of clients, and lawyers need to do that work. Firm culture is incredibly important because senior attorneys, sellers, they need to know that the lawyers who they're merging or joining with are going to be lawyers like them, are going to practice like them, are going to be likable and trustworthy like them, as well as the lawyers who practice with senior attorneys and staff who practice with senior attorneys, who often join growing law firms together with the senior attorney sellers. They want to know that they can work and be compatible with the lawyers and staff of the firms that they join. So let's look at that from a different perspective in terms of trust transfer. In terms of this question of what's the importance of firm culture when selling or purchasing a law firm, well, the flux capacitor, as we call it, of law firm sales is trust transfer. That is, when a senior attorney-led firm is selling their law firm, they're really transferring the relationships of their clients to the growing firms that they join, and the consideration is fee sharing on the revenues derived from that trust transfer. Well, in terms of the significance of firm culture, if a senior attorney seller does not know, like, and particularly trust the attorneys at the firms that they join, well, they're just not going to be able to transition the clients in good conscience to the lawyers at the firm that they join. And we've done scores of deals, knock on wood, over the years, and the few that didn't work were because of the culture that just didn't work out. They just didn't fit. And what we found was our senior attorneys were hesitant to transfer their clients to lawyers at firms that they joined because they just wound up not trusting them. And if that flux capacitor of the model for senior attorney sales is the trust transfer from lawyer senior attorney to lawyer at the firm that they join with regard to the client, trust transfer from the to the client. If that cultural fit is not there, if that synergy value is not there, then even if a deal looks great on paper, we're recommending to our clients not to go forward with those types of matters where you just don't fit and you're not compatible culturally. So then that raises the question in terms of how do you know? How would you know that the culture is not the right fit? And here we're showing that it takes 6 meetings needed to sell a law practice. And we put a lot of weight on meeting number one. Meeting number one is the meet and greet. And we always recommend that from the outset is that before we start looking at the numbers, let's interact as people, as lawyers. Let's get together for drinks, for dinner, for coffee, and let's just find out, do we practice similarly? Do we have similar values? Are our client makeup, is it similar to your client makeup? That is the seller's makeup of client base to a buyer's makeup of their client base. And we find like literally within the 5 to 10 to 20 minutes of that initial meet and greet, gut feelings are important. That proverbial spidey sense, it's important because if the cultural fit is not right, then what we find is that the deals may not work. And we recommend during those that first meet and greet to really think, can I work with these people? Can my clients work with these people? Can my lawyer staff and other staff work with these lawyers and their staff as well? Because if there is not a good cultural fit between selling firm and buying firm, we find deals wind up potentially not working. Okay, so for our next question, our next question is why does Senior Attorney Match suggest selling to a growing law firm? Okay, thank you. So in terms of like why it is that Senior Attorney Match recommends selling to growing law firms, let's first look at who we recommend not to sell your law firm to. And this is not 100% the case, but we find that it's probably 80% plus, maybe even 90% plus, that your internal key employee lawyer is typically not the right person or persons to purchase your law firm. And there's 4 reasons why. First is that your key employee lawyer, you hired that person or those people as key employees. They only wanted a job then, and they typically only want a job now. Also, your key employee lawyers, they went to law school on purpose and not to business school. The next reason why your key employee lawyer doesn't want to purchase your law firm is because they just can't afford to. They've got so many other expenses going on in their lives, from their mortgages, continuing student loan debt, saving money for their retirement, saving money for their kids' colleges, purchasing that next car, planning that next big vacation. Adding on the expense of purchasing a law firm is typically just a bridge too far. And lastly, for whatever reason, your internal key employee lawyer, they just think that their boss is never going to retire. So then who does want and need your law firm? That's growing law firms. Okay. Growing law firms, they want and need senior attorney led firms because they view that as growing law firms view senior attorney led firms as a means to boost the growth of their firms in 3 ways. Number one is the instant client growth that the book of business of a senior attorney led firm presents. Number 2 is the experienced workforce. This is huge, right? We're lawyers. We practice sophisticated law that takes years and years to learn about the practice areas that a growing law firm wants to grow and that a senior attorney's staff, lawyers and non-lawyers, have developed. So senior attorney sellers present that experienced workforce that growing law firms want and need. And then the third boost to the growth is the access to digital content. In today's 3.0 digital era, growing law firms recognize that they need to continue to publish digital content that will attract the attention of would-be clients who want to read up about their lawyers. They want to know, like, and trust their lawyers before they even make the call today. Because rather than asking for a recommendation for attorneys today, would-be clients are just researching their lawyers, just like we research anything and everything else in our lives today. And senior attorney-led firms present literally treasure chests of digital content. So when it comes to why it is that we recommend that senior attorneys sell their law firms to growing law firms is really because there's four winners that result. There are four winners that result when senior attorneys sell to growing law firms. And those four winners are: number one, senior attorneys, right? Senior attorneys are able to monetize their law firms. They're able to finally not have to manage their practice. They can continue practicing, and often they do, as of counsel attorneys. And they finally get to spend more time outside of the office, spend more time with their family and other things that they would love to be doing, rather than coming into the office on, let's say, a Saturday morning to do the books of the firm or whatever else they need to do from the office management standpoint. So senior attorneys are the first winners. Second winners are your key employee lawyers. Those key employee lawyers that don't want to purchase your law firm, what is it that they really want? They want what we call RPS, which is they want reliable, predictable, and safe jobs. And when senior attorneys sell their firms to growing firms that want and need those key employee lawyers, those key employee lawyers are huge winners because they have maintained that RPS, reliable, predictable, and safe job. The third winner are your clients. Right? You have an obligation, really an ethical obligation, to be looking out for your clients to make sure that they continue to have competent and zealous representation. When joining a growing law firm that wants and needs your clients will have that continuing, competent, zealous representation for years, hopefully even decades to come. And the last and the fourth winner, when senior attorneys sell to growing law firms, are the growing law firms themselves. And what is it that they win? They win instant client growth. They win by acquiring and welcoming in experienced lawyers and parastaff. And then third, that treasure chest of digital content that senior attorneys and the lawyers at their firms are just sitting on and offering to growing law firms that need that digital content in today's 3.0 digital era in the legal industry. Okay, so for today's Poock's post, today's Poock's post is: senior attorneys haven't reordered business cards recently because ... So this is something that we think a lot about because we all remember. Let's go into, yesteryear, right? And yesteryear was not even that long ago, okay? The pre-Google era. I mean, I certainly remember the pre-Google era, and every senior attorney remembers the pre-Google era. As my father would say, like, those were the days, right? I mean, those were the days in terms of business development for today's senior attorneys was based around the business card. Okay, that is, senior attorneys, today's senior attorneys, okay, in pre-2000 would go to all types of in-person networking meetings and be handing out scores and scores of business cards. They would lead CLEs, hand out business cards at CLEs and other thought leadership events, speaking at your local senior center, library, church, synagogue, these in-person thought leadership events. Hand out the business cards. Go to events, hand out the business cards. And then there was the equivalent of business cards that would be published in journals, and of course, as we all remember, let our fingers do the walking in the yellow pages. Well, fast forward to where we are today in the post 2020 era. There has been an absolute shift in business development for law firms because clients pulled us there, right? 2020, as we all know, that verb of 2020 in terms of where society went digitally is pivot, right? Society pivoted digitally, as did how would-be clients search for lawyers. Today's would-be clients, they go straight to Google and other forms of social media to be searching for lawyers, and law firms, as a result, they are meeting the need and the interest of those would-be clients by publishing more content online to attract the attention of those would-be clients. For today's senior attorneys who maintain a website pretty much only, and business cards that are gathering dust in their desk drawers, well, they're just developing less clients. And let's look at that a little bit differently in terms of that business development and how law firms are developing business post 2020. Law firms today are developing clients by and large digitally. That is, growing law firms are recognizing to get the attention of clients, they need to have a very strong presence on Google. They need to have a strong presence in social media. That includes LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, a plethora of social media. Of course, your website. The website needs to have fresh and new and compelling content, plus drivers to the website, SEO, Google AdWords, PPC. Then there's audio video, right? YouTube videos, podcasts to again get the attention of clients, because clients want to know, like, and trust their lawyers when they are reviewing their lawyers online. And yes, they're still old school. Clients for sure are still contacting their other professionals, their brothers, their sisters, their coworkers, and asking for a referral. But by and large, digital has entered into the marketplace to attract the attention of would-be clients, and it's only going to continue because we're just so used to Googling and searching online for everything and anything, and that has absolutely entered into the legal sphere post-2020, and that genie is not going back into the bottle. So in terms of client revenues, okay, if you are not reordering your business cards as much as you did in yesteryear, and your firm is not adopting multi-channel digital marketing, what we're finding is that you're just not generating as many new clients as you did in yesteryear. And if you're not generating as many new clients as you did in yesteryear, then your revenues are going down. That's what we call the status quo, right? Like if you maintain the status quo of your firm, a pre-2020 status quo, and if you haven't reordered your business cards, not because, let's say, you've moved locations, right? You just haven't reordered your business cards in a year plus, and you're not investing in multi-channel digital media, and your revenues are going down, then we are finding that that trend is only going to continue. But let's share some good news. Okay. The good news for today's senior attorneys is that now is the best time for senior attorney-led firms to consider selling their law firms in the mid 2020s, where even if in the context of that you haven't reordered your business cards in, let's say, a year plus, and perhaps your revenues at your firm are going down because you're not generating as much business, this is still the best time to consider selling your law firm, because growing law firms, they need that book of business that you have developed an entire career to develop. They need your experienced lawyer and non-lawyer staff, and they need the treasure chest of digital content that you just don't have the time to be publishing to various forms of social media, recording podcasts, doing YouTube videos. Well, growing law firms need that digital content that senior attorneys have. Now let's share a warning, though. And that warning is that when it comes to selling law firms, the primary reason why growing law firms as purchasers want to purchase a senior attorney-led firm is because of the synergy value that senior attorney-led firms offer to growing firms. And two major components to the synergy value is the client growth, the book of business that senior attorneys offer, and the combined workforce, the experienced lawyers and non-lawyers at senior attorney-led firms. Well, if you're not reordering business cards as regularly as you did in the word of mouth era, and if that, let's just say, is one factor for why you're not generating as many new clients as you did in the word of mouth era, then your book of business is not going to be replenishing as much as it used to. And your firm, as a result, is not going to be as valuable, because the most valuable asset when it comes to selling your law firm is your book of business, is your clients. So if your clients are not replenishing as much as yesteryear, your firm is just going to be worth less. Almost as significantly is the combined workforce. That is, for senior attorneys that are not generating as much revenue as they did in yesteryear, at some point, your key employee lawyers, they're going to be concerned about what we call RPS, when it comes to the job security that key employee lawyers that they need. Now, RPS stands for a reliable, predictable, and safe job. And when key employee lawyers leave senior attorney-led firms because they don't believe that that RPS is as strong as it used to be, again, reliable, predictable, and safe job, well, that has an impact on the saleability of your practice, because even if you're presenting a book of business to a growing law firms need lawyers to do the work, because growing firms are typically at their own capacity. So we've seen in the marketplace that you can have a strong book of business, but if you don't have lawyers that can join with a sale or a merger, then growing law firms are hesitant, because it's really hard to get experienced, qualified, and talented attorneys to be able to do that work. So, in terms of that question of, I have not reordered my business cards in period of time. What we are suggesting and offering to senior attorneys is that there is writing on the wall today. That writing on the wall is that today's clients search for their lawyers online. And whereas in yesteryear, senior attorneys would regularly reorder their business cards because there was a marketplace to hand out those business cards and generate business as a result. In today's marketplace, today's would-be consumers, those would-be clients, they are going straight to Google. They're bypassing your business card. And by bypassing your business card, you, if you're not investing in multi-channel digital media, and if you're not being found by those would-be clients to hire you and your law firm, then your revenues are going to go down in the short term. Your book of business could very well not replenish as much as it did in yesteryear, and key employee lawyers and staff people could leave, which could all impact the value of your firm. And if that writing on the wall is applicable to your law firm, and you're not giving out as many business cards as you did in yesteryear, and your revenues are inching downward, then we recommend that now is the best time to consider selling your firm, because those growing law firms, they still need what you have, which are three primary assets: your book of business, your experienced workforce, and those treasure chests of digital content that you offer to today's growing law firms. And that is episode 15 of the Ask the Law Firm Seller Show.